Alright, this tutorial will demonstrate how to install the XAMPP Apache server. I've done a Google search on XAMPP and you'll see the top search result is Apache Friends. That's the website we're looking for, apachefriends.org. I'm on a Windows machine, so I'm going to use the Windows option right here. I click on that and that shows us a page on their website. You can see it's a apachefriends.org. You want to keep checking for that. The internet is a tricky place. For example, this large download button, that is not to download XAMPP. That is to download some kind of file uncompressor. No clue what it is. Not going to use it. Not going to download it. So keep your attention up and avoid scamware advertising like this. Instead, I'm going to scroll down the page looking for download XAMPP. So let's click on that link, and that takes us to the download area of this page. There's a couple of different downloads that you could choose. One is the full download. That's this top one here. It doesn't say full download. It just is the full download. Further down, it says XAMPP USB Lite. This is the version we want. Clicking on the exe link here, it takes us to sourceforge.net. This is expected. I expected that because I happen to know that SourceForge is housing the open source project for the XAMPP. This is the file I expected to see. So I want to double check that to make sure. So I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to save it in the downloads folder. Here's downloads, and that's where I'm going to save it. So I click save, and now my download is running. We've got about 6 minutes remaining, so I'm going to stop the video and restart after the download is complete. The install file has finished downloading. I am going to activate it right here in the Firefox. I'll just double click it. Now Firefox is asking me, as you can see here, whether I want to open an executable file that was downloaded from the internet. This is a Firefox security measure, and I'm going to click OK. Now there's a Windows security where they want to know whether I want to start an exe file from anybody other than them, and I'm going to click Run. The installer first determines language. I've selected English. Dutch is the other choice. And there's a question here about making sure that I have my device ready. I am not installing on a USB. I'm going to install directly on the hard drive. So for that, I would just click OK and bypass this message, which brings up the full installation. There's a simple Next button. The installation location comes up pre-filled with my C drive and the XAMPP folder, which is what you should use unless you have an extraordinary situation, in which case you probably are doing something that has prepared you for knowing what you should be doing. So do that. But if this is unfamiliar to you, then just use this default folder. Click the install button and the files are being extracted. I'm going to pause the video while this install occurs. The installation is just about finished. We have a little bit to go, and we just click finish. There was not that many choices, and we are done. Now then, let's verify that the installation worked and that our Apache server is fully functional. In Windows Explorer, I have navigated to the XAMPP folder, and it is open. We can see on the right a bunch of folders here, and down below we have a few batch files and a few exe files for starting the Apache server or other services. We're going to use the Apache start batch file and the Apache stop batch file rather than the XAMPP start and stop. The reason for this is security. When you use the Apache start, it only turns on Apache and PHP. If you use the XAMPP, it also starts up the MySQL, and that service is not required for the HTML5 games that we're working with, and there's no reason opening a security hole through this service when it's not required. You'll find out more about security in the next video. For convenience sake, I'm going to put an icon on the desktop. I can use the Send to Desktop button to do that. So there's now an icon for the Apache Start, and I'm right-clicking on the Apache Stop, and I do Send to Desktop. So I now have a Apache Stop batch file on my desktop. Those can be renamed so that they're a little more convenient. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Meanwhile, let's start up, since we're here, let's start up the Apache service by just double-clicking that file. Here's the text, and they're asking you to please not close this window. Use the Apache stop batch file, not closing the window, because the Apache stop more properly closes down services. Let's look in our browser. Since we have a server running on our own desktop computer, all we need to do is type in localhost. It found the file and started it up. So all is good. Our services are running, and you are now ready to use your XAMPP system in order to develop HTML5 games. As mentioned earlier, it's probably a good idea to rename these icons, because as you can see, one of the icons says Apache Sta and the other just says Apache St. So I'm clicking on it a couple of times gently. I didn't want to do it fast and start it. I was just accessing the icon to change the name, and I'll call it Apache Space Start. You'll see that that fits under the icon nicely. Another way to rename it is to right-click and select Rename, and we shall make this Apache Space Stop. So now we have the two icons. They're easily recognizable, and these are the icons we will use for starting and stopping our Apache service. Since it's already running, let me move this out of the way for a second. Here's the window that was started by the Apache Start batch file. I'm going to double-click the Apache Stop, and as you can see, it closed down the Apache Start. We're done, and you have the basics of a full server on your computer so that you may develop HTML5 games.